Good evening. Hello, everybody. My name is Jack Chen. I'm the director of the APA Institute. We're sponsoring Hari as our artist-in-residence this year. We all try to do the right things from pre-K through college and even grad school. My mom told me in middle school that, without cracking a smile, mind you, that I could not date until I had my PhD. Right? Many of us are kids of immigrants and refugees, and we have seen how our parents will scrimp and save, and we heard daily how they, of course, sacrificed for us. They expressed their love by pushing us relentlessly. We try to reciprocate our love by going along with their grand hopes for us. They want us to be happy, and their idea of how to achieve that is by simply working hard, gaining marketable skills, and getting that six-figure job. This all, of course, is their version of the American dream. And then there are the exceptions. The exceptions who somehow have the guts, compulsion, craziness, or obliviousness to cross that line. That line is that zone that I think few kids of Asian everybody who is an immigrant and a refugee coming out of that family, but probably most Americans, know, because it feels very dense, and it's something that you just know you can't cross over. It's like an invisible electrical field. And we know that that's a zone that few kids of Asian immigrants are insane enough to ever even think of venturing into. There's an enormous emotional barrier that all who are growing and healthy know if you pass that, if you venture into that, is the point of no return. And if they don't want to feel the wrath of shame, guilt, and relentless badgering, then you don't go there. Now, I can't imagine what would have happened to me if I returned home one day and said, "Mom, I've been thinking over my career choices, and I've decided that I want to be a stand-up comedian." Right? So thankfully for all of us, Hari Kondabolu made that choice to cross that line. Those of you who were here for his kickoff event last October know he's even better than when he's on Conan or Letterman and Jimmy Kimmel, to see him live. And his album, Waiting for 2042, is outrageously funny. So I hope you get that. Tonight, what I'd like you to do, so we don't have, kind of monitors to have you applause or to, whatever. But I think, since Harry, he's kind of shy, right? So I kind of need your help, okay? I need your help. So pull out your phones, right? And turn them on. We want to kind of light up the space so there's an audience. And then kind of begin a chant, right, with me, okay? So begin, Hari, Hari. Okay, so Hari, 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 Hari. I'm delighted to welcome the man who missed the application deadline for NYU, to welcome him to know as APA's Institute's 2015-2016 Artist-in-Residence, Hari Kondabolu and the Hari Kondabolu Show.
Thank you, Jack. I always wanted to be a cult leader, and that fits. Thank you all for coming to this event. How many of you came to the event I did at NYU last semester? Okay, all right, so I'll do some different jokes. Can't be lazy tonight. I brought some really good friends with me that I wanted to share with you all. They're extremely talented people, and I'm so lucky to be friends with them. And the first comedian that I'm bringing up, we used to work together on a show called Totally Biased with Kamau Bell. She's incredibly funny. She's been on Conan. She's an incredible writer, incredible comic. Put your hands together for my friend Aparna Nancherla. You're a pioneering figure.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was like, I am?
You are. I read on various websites of great repute like Jezebel.
Yeah.
And Gawker or various other Gawker web pages, Gawker-related web pages, that you are the first South Asian woman to do a late night comedy set, late night stand-up set. Yes,
Thank you.
the first.
And of course, the backstory to that is that we are the ones who tipped off Jezebel.
Right.
That was a thing. We should recreate the conversation we had.
So we used to write for
We used to
Totally
work at the
Biased,
same job.
right? With Kamau Bell, and I walked over to Aparna and I was like, "Hey, are you the first South Asian woman to ever do a late night stand-up set?"
Yeah, and then I took off my crown.
Right.
I was like, I think I am.
And I'm like, this is interesting. I should tweet about this.
But first we tried to think of counter examples.
Right.
We were like, are we wrong?
Right, Mindy Kaling will know she doesn't do stand-up,
Yeah.
so she wouldn't be it. And then
Aziz Ansari in a
Aziz
wig.
Right.
Yeah. No.
So it's like, I guess it's you.
Yeah.
And then I tweeted it in all caps because I was excited.
Yeah.
And then Jezebel wrote an article, and there was a little. If you pay close attention, sometimes they give you not footnotes, but links to show this is their source.
Yeah.
And the source was my tweet.
Yeah. Via.
So congratulations.
Yeah, and we kind of tweeted it. We kind of put it out there just to see
What would happen.
if someone would be like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
actually.
Right.
Like we were testing it.
Like when you're in such a small minority, you
Yeah.
make history and you make history.
I
That's
know.
kind of how this works.
Yeah, and it's very anticlimactic in that people are like, how does it feel? And you're just like, I feel the same. Like for you, it's very much just another day.
It's just
yeah.
another day. It was a great set, by the way.
Yeah.
Kind
Oh,
of-
thanks.
yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't feel. I don't think it feels different for me. Maybe for people who watched it.
Well, I hear talking to traveling around the country,
Yeah.
people mention you to me a fair bit, and just
that's nice.
well, especially a lot of different people, but a lot of women, a lot of South Asian folks who are like, I want to do comedy, and she's my inspiration, and I'm like, but I'm right here, and you're saying this to me.
That is rude.
It is rude. Well, to be honest, you have a more accessible style because you write jokes, and I like to yell, and you have clear punchlines.
That's
and
not true.
I have long, convoluted things that I'm I guilt you into laughing, and it's different styles. Let's not talk about skills.
No. You yell jokes.
I yell jokes.
Yeah.
Laugh. Get it? Because I mentioned Denmark earlier. It comes around. What's wrong with all of you? But this isn't about me.
Right.
But there's a joke that you do that I've always found really interesting where you go on stage and you'll say, and I'm paraphrasing, so I'm going to ruin it, but how I'm surprised I'm up here too. What is the...
Oh, yeah, I'm surprised I'm a comedian, too. I think that was my first line on the Conan set.
That's
yeah,
right,
yeah.
And it's interesting because I have felt that pressure as well. I think it's different for all of us. But when you go on stage and people have their expectations of what you're supposed to do, what's going to come out of your mouth,
Yeah.
or that you're how is this person a stand-up?
Right.
And I feel like it's gotten better for me in time because there's just more South Asian dudes doing stand-up.
Yeah.
But do you still feel that when you walk on stage, people are like, "What is this?"
I think it's gotten better, because I've gotten at least more to a place where I'm doing shows where people sort of know who I am,
Right.
or they're like, you, it's fair that you're up there. But I feel like when I started, sometimes people would be like, no, not consciously, but there would just be this feeling of what do you think you're doing?
Right.
Or did you lose something up there? What? And then that line was an easy way to just be like, yeah, I know it's weird, but we're
Right.
gonna try to move on.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, before we go, you're a prolific Twitterer.
Oh, thank you.
And you're just so good. And
Sometimes it feels like a compliment, and other times I'm like, I know. It's bad.
But how much has because the internet, I feel like, is the space where like you don't need to worry about gatekeepers. You don't need to worry about what other people. You just write what you want. Do you feel like it's giving you a certain freedom to like? Yeah, because people. I remember when you got hired to be on Totally Biased, a big part of it was like, she's so funny, and here's proof. And it just gives you this example of like, here is all the proof of your great writing.
Yeah, I think for me it helped a lot because it's like a platform where even if you're like a quiet person in real life, which I am, it's like you can be very loud as an introvert on the internet and very loud about your like social awkwardness, which people seem to relate to. For whatever reason.
You're the best. Thank you again
Oh,
for doing
thank
this.
you.
Aparna
Thank you,
Nancherla.
guys.
The next comedian who's coming on stage is also my friend, and that is the theme. She's very funny. She was just on the nightly show with Larry Wilmore and is also Canada famous. Huge Canada famous. Please put your hands together for Sabrina Jalees. I'm gonna just say something to you that I've never said to anybody else. How does it feel to be a pioneering figure?
To be the first woman, South Asian nonetheless, asked in one night is feels amazing. It feels integral. It feels me.
College students usually eat shit like that up. They start clapping immediately.
I
like,
know.
Yes!
I really.
Statements without any evidence. Yes.
Yes. I really begged for an applause break tonight, but who cares? You gotta. It's the economy, you know. You gotta pull up those socks and beg.
You're Canada famous. How famous are you in Canada?
I mean, it kind of sounds like the way Canada famous sounds like kinda, which is an overstate. I mean, like Canada, I did lots of cool things in Canada. If you go to Canada, you cross the border, there's a billboard of me. I worked in TV a bunch. Then I came here 5 years ago and I was like, foolproof plan. Why don't I take this little act to America, watch them eat it up. And I need rent money. I need money. Just kidding. I mean, what? That was not applause worthy. Next question.
I love it, just pandering to college students. Please like
Please.
me.
Please.
Eventually you will have money and you will provide all of us with income. and
Children
rent
are
to
the
live here.
future. I mean, if
The
one of
children
them
are our future. Right?
Yeah.
They're paying me to do this right now. But we did a show together a couple of years ago. I think it was Haverford College or it was Bryn Mawr or it was a small. It's you know.
NYU is the only place that matters to me.
It was good.
It's true.
Good, right?
It's true.
Yeah, fuck Columbia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, what is Colombia? Just a small,
Just a
landlocked
fucking
South American country.
Shitty country. Imagine we all thought that. Okay.
But we did a gig together at Haverford. I
Yeah.
remember you telling me that it was easier for you to come out to your parents than it was to come out to an audience. And I always thought, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, no, true
I was
facts.
listening. All right.
Yeah.
But I thought
I'm not out, Harry. It's all very clear that it's a joke.
But I thought that was really interesting because usually I feel like it almost becomes easier to come out to like strangers, not just come out, but like to say.
I think
your
saying
truth
certain
to
things to
strangers.
strangers is always like it's easier to bomb in front of strangers than my parents for sure.
Right.
But like when it came to coming out, like that was just my parents. They had to like me eventually, and they also married each other. My dad's Pakistani, my mom's Swiss, so they were like the original lesbians, you know. Just like walking around malls in the 70s, just making white people puke, just like, ew! How did they do it? But so then there was that. I'm not saying that it was easy. It's always in the beginning. I say like, what I say is, I just say it because like I've said it before. But like coming out is like cliff jumping, where you're like, oh, the water's there, and once you say it, it's like, oh no, we got to deal with the disappointment and all that. Not that cliffs make you feel disappointed. That's where the old analogy fails. Every time you jump off a cliff, the cliff's like, when are you going to be a doctor? No, but it's like you make the decision and then it's like, oh, I'm falling. And then, but with the problem with coming out on stage was I started comedy in the late 20s, early 30s. And I started when I was 16, and I didn't even know I was gay. So it was like this thing that I toured with the same dude, Azur Usman, in a tour called like the Muslims. Muslim. Allah made me funny. Yeah. Allah made me funny. It's always, there's like lots of the names of like the brown, huh? I was working that circuit. I was doing like South Asian doctors' parties on yachts. Canada was fancy for me. So it was just like knowing that I would lose a whole market, basically, and knowing that, the vibe when I started doing comedy was like Ellen DeGeneres came out in her sitcom and then the show was canceled. Like, just keep it to yourself. But then I didn't. But then I fucking didn't. But then it just, it ended up really stunting my growth as an artist, obviously. Like, you can't, if you're like telling yourself you can't write about something that's pretty integral that you're going through, then it's not to say that everything that I write is like, gay, it's okay, gay. But like, once you stop, then it just like bungs up the whole constipation. So I was like writing constipated for a while. And then as soon as when I started being like, the more comfortable I got with it, that's another thing, like going to these little college towns, of course you're gonna be judged for being, as soon as you walk out there,
right.
You're out as brown, and it's like confusing for them. But the cool thing is, the more proud you are, like evidently proud, and just like, yeah, this is, I have a cool fucking life. I'm in a position where I can be like an example to some, closeted like head of the volleyball team, that like, things can be cool and gay. You can be, yeah. Yes, all right, cool, okay. Cool. Cool and gay.
Sabrina Jalees. We got one more performer. This next performer is a friend of mine. Extremely talented. You might have seen her on The Tonight Show. She's also a writer on Fresh Off the Boat. Please put your hands together for Ali Wong. It's so, first of all, of course, it's always the best thing ever to see you perform.
Thanks, Hari.
And it's really sad that we don't talk enough, and when we do, it's in front of 400 people.
I know.
And in addition to being my friend, I have to tell you this. What does it feel like to be a pioneering figure? And because you are though.
I know. I know. I think it's really.
That's like a Beyonce answer. Like,
I know. I'm very blessed. I know. I think it's so. But honestly, I don't really like to think about that a lot, because I think it's unhealthy, and I think that.
I bathe in it, so I love
it. You're unhealthy. This is an intervention about your ego. No, because I think the best comics, they just they do it because they can't help it.
Right.
And they have no other choice but to just get up on stage 3 to 4 times a night in front of this is a great crowd. This is 400 people. But when Hari and I both started out, you've been doing it for how long?
When does it start? Like when you just go to a club regularly? About 10 years, right?
But we both started basically 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's hard. Comedy's hard. And you go and perform for shitty crowds, 6 people, get paid nothing, travel really far, and you do it because...
Last night was a long time ago.
Yeah. I still do that all the time. I'm like...
You're building muscle, right?
Yeah. I come to some places and I'm like, yeah, started from the bottom, now we're here. And then it's like, you go to one of those Brooklyn shows and you're like, I'm still at the bottom.
Right. Except I'm another year older than everyone in the audience.
Yes. But it's I think that spirit is just what's good to focus on and not get involved in analyzing. I try to leave it up to other people to talk about, the pioneering stuff.
Right,
I don't
right.
think about it too much.
I'll do that.
Okay.
You're writing on a show that word has been used.
You're
writing on Fresh Off the Boat.
Do you guys like the show? Yeah. It's so, it's so funny because I shudder at the thought of sometimes to the last day I almost said no to that job because a lot of stand-up comics were like, don't take a writing job. It's the worst thing in the world. You don't have a life. You don't get to go on the road and do stand-up, which is what I'm most passionate about. And you know, like we're stand-up comics. We're used to like wearing our pajamas all day long, masturbating at like 2 p.m. and just like watching.
Oh, just one.
Just
Okay.
one.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience, and
Well, also it's different, I think, in the sense that like I didn't really want to have a writing job for the same reason that I got to write. I'm totally biased, and it was like this
Yes.
is a very diverse writers' room. The most diverse that I've been told that from the older white writers that were in the room, like this doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah.
We were saying things and doing things that other people hadn't done, so it felt like it wasn't just a job; it was the job I wanted. And from talking to you about Fresh Off the Boat, you've said like the writers' room is unique, and the show also is not just a sitcom. It's not just a sitcom.
yeah, it was like it's so unique, and we didn't when I met with the showrunner, Nancherla Khan, who is the creator of the show. Do you guys know what a showrunner is? I think most people don't know what it is. Right. It's like the Larry David of a show. Like how Larry David was the showrunner of Seinfeld. You're the head writer. You lead all the rewrites. You basically get final cut in editing of all the episodes. You run the show. You decide every casting decision. Everything is like up to this one person. And ours was this amazing woman who curated everything that has. I mean, the reason why that show's so critically acclaimed is all because of her. And you can just see like from her, it just trickled down into everything. She hired a wonderful, diverse writing staff. I think it's like totally biased. It was probably one of the most diverse writing rooms. Yeah. And for me, I think why it makes such a big difference to have a diverse writer's room is because I'll take a chance on pitching something that I normally wouldn't pitch on the chance that maybe Hari has a similar experience with his immigrant mother.
Right.
But like if
you're not crazy, I'm not crazy.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not like, what is that wacky thing that that's a wacky, crazy thing moms do. No, that's you know?
Right.
But because on the chance that like, you know, Sanjay might know what I'm talking about, I'll pitch it.
There is a dude named Sanjay.
Yeah, and then like, you know, I was telling Hari too, there's a if Nancherla wasn't running the room, it was another woman of color who was running the room, which is extremely unusual. And I think that it's unfortunate that she's very low key on purpose, but it's just so important that there are more female showrunners because it makes such a difference, and you can tell like the episode we had where Jessica, the mom, is bonding with the neighbor over Stephen King.
Oh, Honey.
Right? And someone wrote a review about how, like, if it was any other show, two women would be bonding over, like, Nick Lachey. But you can, but like, it's all because of her that they were bonding over something so unique, and it's not because she was trying to make them bond over something unique. Right. Her goal, and when I met with her first, which is what we shared about the show, was not to make this like a revolutionary show, not to make this like a great Asian show that would appeal to a bunch of Asian people. It was to make a funny show. Right. That was like always the number one goal. It's the same thing with the stand-up comedy thing. It's like, I'm not trying to do anything but make people laugh, and whatever informs that and comes out naturally is whatever happens, and anyone else is free to interpret it, you know?
But I will say that like there is something in terms of for years certain ground not being touched or not having Asian writers or female showrunners. Like there's just certain ground that has not touched because that perspective hasn't been given airtime, right?
Yeah.
And so much of comedy is about finding fresh new angles, things that haven't been mined before. And when you have new eyes and when you have people who have experiences that haven't been shared, it's going to be fresh and new and exciting and interesting.
Yeah.
So from a comedic perspective, I think the show is also much more interesting than anything I've seen in years.
Yeah,
so,
thank you for saying that.
Well,
It's great, and I just hope that there's more. You know, what's exciting now is that the show has done well in ratings. For last Tuesday was the second night it had aired, and it did really, really well.
These are amongst people that have televisions, and who has a television now?
Yes, exactly. And it was like, for the night, it was the number one comedy of the night. On a night where it's like New Girl on Fox, the Mindy Kaling show or whatever, it was the number one comedy. And what's exciting to me now is that like hopefully networks will try to go for more shows with people of color, featuring like families of color. Not because they're pressured into being, you know, have more diversity by like the community, but because it's a great business decision, you know, and that is what is so exciting now.
Right.
Because we never talked about how it's like this huge historical show, but then people, you know, critics putting into the context of everything, like the media will do that for you. Just make a good, funny show with people who you see in real life, who you haven't seen before, you know?
That's right.
So,
Ali Wong.
yeah.
That's always the most awkward way
Do you
out.
want me to get off, or do you
no,
want to stay here?
No, stay here. We're gonna have Aparna and Sabrina come on. I don't think we have time for just us to have a discussions, but we're gonna open it up for Q&A. So if you all have questions, there'll be a mic over there. You should ask them, and we still have time for your questions. So.
By the way, how great is it that it's like it's us three here, and Hari didn't choose to call this like the three funny females panel, right? It's amazing. That like says something huge, you know, because we get to be people first, and not defined by
Our
our gender. It's
tits.
great. Yeah.
Our ample tits.
Our ample cups and cups of them. If you'd pour them out.
Oh, they were gonna call it Titty Tuesday. I'm like, no way. We're not gonna do it.
NYU.
Not. I've never said
Titty
that
Tuesday.
word on stage. I feel really bad, and I'm already expecting tons of tweets. Like, how could you use that word? That's not like you.
The sad part is, if it
Social
was
justice
called
warrior.
Titty Tuesday, I'd still be here for sure. I'd be like, whoa,
Right.
hundreds of people? Fuck yeah.
Yes.
Are there any questions?
Yes, you at the mic.
Oh, it's me, I guess. Okay. Well, I'll buy you some time.
I hugged you, come on.
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
Hi, I'll ask a question.
Yes, yes.
Well, don't feel obligated.
Well, no, actually, I do have this question.
How much
because
rent do you pay?
I'm also trying to be a comedian and an actor in New York City, and I just wanted to know from you guys kind of what's kind of, not to be negative, but what's kind of like the worst thing you've heard after like a casting decision, or like been told by a casting director, and how do you kind of deal with that? Because I've been told like really awful things, like think more like the kid from Indiana Jones.
Oh my.
Wait, what?
goodness.
Yeah, I've heard some like really awful things from casting directors. I don't know if you guys have had kind of that same experience, and like how do you deal with that?
One time, well, my first agent in Canada, her name was Danny DeLeo. She actually repped Russell Peters. Put it up. And so I had a meeting with her. She was always very stern. She was always like, get those eyebrows under control. And then after that, I had a meeting with her because I didn't have any auditions. And I was like, Danny, I would love to go out for just anything. And her phone rang during the meeting, and it was like, oh, yeah, Degrassi? Yeah. Young girl? Yeah. Funny? Yeah. Pretty? All right, cool. All right, okay, cool. And I'm like, yeah, that's perfect. I would love to go out for Degrassi. And she's like, oh, honey, they said pretty. But that's that's a
Yeah.
reality in this industry. Is like, no, if you send me out for like, there's a certain that you just end up kind of having to swallow your pride on being described as like that chubby little weirdo and rascal neighbor, and you're like,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I went to
Totally.
Bikram today, but okay.
I mean, I don't audition often, and the reason I don't is because I get descriptions like this, and I refuse to be in a casting room. This is an actual show. I won't say the network, but that is getting made. This is what I was supposed to audition for. East Indian. First of all, already colonial language, really East Indian. Like, well, you know, there was a West and an East one because Columbus was right. All right. East Indian with an accent and a soulful, almost philosophical air. So it's both like the accented character, but he's also like, you know, like, let me help you white people with my Eastern wisdom. Yeah. He's the owner of the bodega downstairs. What South Asians are owning bodegas? South Asian bodega. Here's the note at the bottom. Please use an Indian accent. As if people are showing up and using a British accent to piss off the casting people. So it's like usually in situations like that, and before when something like that would come up, I would say, I'm not gonna do an accent with this. And they're like, oh, you don't need to do it any way you want to, which is ridiculous because there's broken English on the page. And then you go to the room and you do it the way they said you could do it, and then they're like, well, can you try it this way? Which is like, why did you waste my time doing this? And it's always that like, you lied to me. You blatantly lied to me and wasted my time and then tried to peer pressure me into doing a thing I didn't want to do. That's the part I always hate.
I get more Latina, and I'm fine just like doing whatever they want me to do with Latina image. I'm kidding. That was not way I wanted it to land. But then one time, one win for us was that I got cast in a Lifetime Movie of the Week. Big win for all of us. But I did the audition with like an accent. That's like what they wanted. It was like, I'm just a Latina slut. And then when I got to set, it filmed in Halifax. No one that was at that audition was there. And then I just did it just like, hey, what's up? I am totally pregnant. Totes pregs. And they didn't push me on set to do a Latina accent. Yeah.
I'm kind of like Hari, where if I see, as soon, it's like a red flag right away when it says like 30s Asian, and then I'll say like, do they want, they know now. When I say they, I mean the Jews who take all of my money and are in charge of putting me out on all these auditions or whatever. They like, that sounded horrible right there, but whatever. It's true. They're all Jewish.
Ali
and
Wong said that. It was Ali Wong, not Hari Kondabolu.
So they know that when like if they always asked for me if there's an accent, and I just won't do accents. Not because I think it's shameful to do accents, but because I don't do it good service, and it's cartoony if I do it. Because I didn't grow up with parents who have accents, so I think it's just inauthentic.
Your
to who
parents
I
don't
am.
have accents at all?
They do not have accents. No.
I met your mother and I stereotypedly gave her an
Yeah.
accent in my memories. I was like, she was wearing a
placed it there,
kimono.
like, yes. Your mom was a panda. She wasn't a panda? Nope. Not so much.
Any thoughts, Aparna?
I feel like it can go either way. Like, I feel like I've been doing comedy long enough that since I don't talk a lot about race in my act, like I end up being put now out for roles that are like weird, quirky thing in the corner, which is fine. Like I'm cool with that. I'm like fine with being like a talking lamp or something. I'm like, but when I have gone out for like specifically diversity stuff, it is strange how like backwards it still is. Like I remember auditioning for some diversity showcase where like networks want to see diverse people, and then they made you do like characters for your audition. And I remember someone was like, oh, do one that's like cultural, and I was like, it's not really what I do, and they were like, just put one in there. And then I remember I did like, that was the one I hated the most, but I tried to make it like weird with an accent. And then of course they were like, we like that one. And I was like, no, that's not what diversity
They always like that one. They always like that one.
I know.
I think
So
it's almost
weird.
time. We have time for one more. I don't need to pull teeth here.
That hug's paying off.
Yeah, there's.
I got to
there you
ask the
go.
question because I know Sabrina and hi Aparna, how are
Hi,
you?
hi,
And
good to see
Ali,
you.
how's it going? So I'm Nikki
Natural.
Chavla. I'm a stand-up comedian as well, and I love all you guys, and I commend you for doing this. My question is, do you ever get the question, do you want to be an actor or a comedian? That's the first question. Choose one. And the second thing is, how much of your profession, and I know you guys have done tons of open mics over the years and everything, how much of it is getting up and how much of it is about writing? Like, do you ever, do you follow me with that?
I'm going to answer both in a jumbled sentence. You have to decipher.
Yeah, okay.
50 actor comic 9. But I'd say the actor comic thing, it's like acting's just something that comes along with doing comedy. Some people like it more. I likes it a lotsies. I likes to be on setsies, makeup. Ali has done some coolie acting. And like so much good money, why not? Cool, yeah. But then comedy's the one that like comedy. I feel bad when I go into auditions sometimes, and I'm like, these actors, like, oftentimes they have to wait for the phone call, whereas we can go into Bunga's Den on 14th any old time and tell jokes.
I mean, I feel like the actor-comic split part, I feels like that's more of a self-identification thing more than anything, and also how much time you really want to spend in both. Because like Randall Park, who was a friend of ours, like who stars in Fresh Off the Boat. I remember Randall did stand-up for a long time, and I remember him making a choice. Like, I feel like acting is where my strength is. I write really well. I should create things, and stand-up just is such a commitment. Going out every night, really getting stronger, that for him he felt like, no, that's not where it really is going to be for me, and I should focus on this. So I think that's less to do with how people view you, because I think comics, if anything, are very versatile. We can pretty much do whatever. So like, I don't think that really hurts you. In terms of what was the second
Writing versus being on stage.
I mean, I think it varies on your strengths, you know? Like, I know comics who don't write, they go on stage and they figure it out. And if they write, they become stiff. And I know folks who are, like, just really tight writers. Like, Mike Kaplan was an incredible stand-up comic. Like, and there was a New York Times article about his writing process. Like, he's constantly, like, writing, doing another gig, moving the words around, another gig, rewriting it slightly. Like, that's how he works, you know? And for me, like, I like to write down bullet points with major lines and figure it out on stage, and after a while it gets really tightly worded. So that's how I do it. So I don't think there's a single way to do it. It's about what makes you your best self on stage.
I think Aparna buys her jokes online, I heard.
I do.
There was a New York Post article. It was riveting.
New York Post article.
Yeah.
I personally, I hardly write off stage, and I do all my writing on stage. That's why I try to get up as much as possible, because I need an audience to be there in order to like inspire some sort of emotion from a topic that I've been thinking about for a long time. And then in terms of, I think it's good. Like, my first love is stand-up for sure, and then I think whatever, all this, like, I've gotten to act in some cool projects, and the Fresh Off the Boat thing has been really awesome. But stand-up will first and foremost always be my first love. But I'm down to do, like, other things for sure, So I think it helps inform my stand-up and helps me grow as a stand-up too.
Well, I think
You, child, you.
Well, I think the nice thing about comedy is now it's like, people are like, oh, they kind of assume you can act and write automatically, which, and then you have to be like, no.
Well, it's always worse when they're like, oh, no.
I know, what have we done? But I think you are given a lot of opportunities, and you kind of just have to hone in on what you find fulfilling, because I've been doing more auditions, and I'm like, you know what, I really hate this. Like, I don't find it satisfying. And you don't have to, like, I feel like there's always this pressure that you can't say no to things, because after a while people will stop asking, but I don't think that's true. Like, you kind of have to half go take chances and half follow your inner gut.
So one last thing I want to say is that, like, I'm not the person to do this, but, like, for example, I think there could be a show around Aparna. Like, she might, even if she doesn't see herself as, like, an amazing actress or whatever, she's so talented, she's so unique, she has such a unique point of view. And if, like, maybe, like, the one thing you can do well is Aparna, and even if it was, like, just that, I mean, you could have, but there needs to be someone to, like back her up,
right.
And I think hopefully within the next couple years, now she'll find somebody, but just because you don't see yourself as like an actress, and because I'm sure they think of all these weird roles for you as like the quirky lamp or whatever. But I could see, I could see a world where it would be very funny in many situations for you to play in. That would be great. And do yourself a favor to follow Aparna on Twitter if you haven't already, because it's like free candy every day. It's really amazing and hilarious. So.
Thanks, Allie.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of the program. We'll be outside for a reception right after this. I have my albums and posters on sale. I thought everyone else was bringing stuff, so it's just me hawking merchandise. But we'll be outside for another about 25 minutes. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Good night.